Hey, in this video, I'm going to build a full sales coach system inside of n8n that takes the transcript of every single one of my calls. It sends it to a custom sales coach GPT that is trained on the best sales frameworks in the world, and then delivers a full breakdown on Slack with everything that I could have done better. And by the way, this is literally the exact system that we've sold to a business for 3K. And in case it's your first time here, my name is Michele, and over the past 12 months, I've helped over 40 businesses implement these sort of AI solutions and taught over 17,000 people in the process, all starting with zero technical knowledge. So I'm going to build the full system step by step. I'm going to show you all the detours and the mistakes I make along the way, so you get to see what an actual real development process for a project actually looks like. With that being said, let's dive in. So the first part of the automation is actually me ending the call, which triggers a webhook. It means it sends the data to n8n saying, hey, we just finished the call, review it, right? Now, obviously I can't do that right now because I'm not on call, but what I'll do is I'll send a request to this webhook so you can see what it actually looks like. So we finished the call, then we send the data here. What it does then is it uses Fireflies, which is the software that we're using for meeting notes, to extract the transcript. Then we're sending it to a sales coach, GPT, which is on our platform, the OpenAI platform here, which is trained on a document, which is this one right here, which has a bunch of frameworks and questions that you should ask for different parts of the call, which analyzes the full call based on that framework, and then sends us a message on Slack right here. We can see that it broke down the start of the call, and also the objections, clarifying objections. So you missed an opportunity to clarify the prospect's objectives early on. A question like, what specific outcomes are you hoping to achieve from this automation? What are set clear expectations and direction? That's pretty true. Instead, you ask, can you run me through your company first? Which turned the focus away from the immediate needs. Now that's pretty good framework. Of course, this was a few months back, so I wasn't the best closer. I was trying my best, but there you go. So it took all the call and it analyzed it based on this exact framework, right? Which is a framework that we use in sales. I'm gonna start from zero. So I'm gonna go plus, workflow, personal, and then start from zero. So you get to see what it actually looks like. And we can start. And as always, we never start here, but we start here, right? Because we wanna map things out before we build it. So every automation that we build has an input and has an output, right? So the input in this case, let me make this unbold. And by the way, if you're wondering what platform I'm using, it's Miro. Very good. The input in this case would be the call recording or call transcript, right? This is a pretty easy system, I'm not gonna lie, but it is one of the most ROI. And what you'll find is that the easiest systems, not the easiest, but the ones that are easier to build, that are not super complex with 50 AI agents, they're typically the ones that give the business the most value. Okay, so call transcript, which is a transcript of the call. And by transcript, we mean what's everything that has been said. And we know this works because we have meeting note takers. So for those of you who don't know what meeting note takers are, let's go to Fireflies, for example, right here. Fireflies, not this, but this is a note taker, right? What this does is that it joins the calls when you're on a call with a client. So you hop on a call with a client and you let it in, and it's sort of like a live note taker. So it's there, it doesn't speak, of course, it just takes notes and it transcribes the call so you can then use it for whatever it is. I typically have the note taker on every single call, just because it's great if you missed anything on the call, do you want to look back, or action items or things like these, which are great. That's what we would typically do. So call transcript, we would use Fireflies. So let me put here Fireflies. You also have Fathom, you have Sibyl.ai, you have Loom. There's a ton of stuff that you have in the market. They're all pretty good. So call transcript, and then we want to basically send it to the GPT, sales GPT. So we'll have to make a GPT on the OpenAI platform, which is actually very easy. Don't worry. To analyze call. Let me make this here. And then we have to send Slack message with breakdown, with feedback. There we go. See, crazy system. $3,000 for something like this. That took me about what, 1 to 2 hours, because it was the first time. But if I were to sell it to another person, I would take maybe 30 minutes. It all really depends on what document you're using to the GPT to actually compare the sales call. All right, so with that said, let's start here. Let's start with the first step, which is call transcript. So because we're using Fireflies, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open app, and you're gonna have to make an account. I have the free account, so I'm not paying for this. And you can see here, I have meetings. I have all the meetings with everyone that I've had. I believe that I'm above the rate, which is because they gave you like 600 minutes of free calls. But here's all the meetings that I have. And so with every single meeting that I've had, we can transcribe it and use this exact automation, which is amazing. And especially because I've had days where I've had 5 calls. And so I wanted every single call transcribed and give me feedback and so on. And it happens instantly because it's right after the call. So where am I going with this? We have to go here to the settings, and then we go to developer settings here, and we can see that we have 2 different things. So we're just going to play around with these 2 different things. So the first thing is the API key, which is sort of like a password. If you use ChatGPT in your automations, or Claude or Gemini or Grok or OpenRouter, you always need an API key, which is a password. And then we have a webhook. And this is really why we're able to make this automation happen, is because we can transcribe. It triggered when transcription is completed. What this means is that you go on a call with the client, it finishes, it then finishes transcribing the call, which takes about 3-5 seconds. And then it sends a signal to the automation saying, hey, this is the meeting recording, or this is the meeting ID. And then we send it to the next step to take the meeting ID and then take the transcript from the call. Okay. It will make much more sense once I actually build it. But bear in mind that we are able to send the notification to the automation once a meeting is finished. So the first step is actually adding the webhook. If I go to n8n right here, I can add a first step, which is the trigger, which is what is the thing that starts the automation. And here we have on webhook call. So again, webhook is just a URL that people use, or the servers use, to send signals back and forth, right? So the webhook is made right here. You don't have to do anything. Just get this. Just press on it, you copy it. And then if you go back to Fireflies, you can paste it here and you press save. Now, a very important thing that we currently have a test webhook, right? If you want to go in production, so if you want to make this live, activate this, you have to change this to a production URL. The only difference is that this has this and production doesn't, right? That's it. So in theory now, if you have a call with the client and you bring in Fireflies, then once the call is finished, it will send a signal to this webhook. So as I mentioned, I'm not able to be on a call right now, but I have the request that we typically get from the call recording, right? Now, in order for us to send a example request, we're going to go to Postman API, which is a new thing that I haven't introduced before. But it actually is a really, really good software. It's actually very easy to use. It looks a bit fancy and techy as well. But we use this when we are testing webhooks, right? Because something like this, to test it, you would have to go on a call. You have to finish the call, you need to say something on the call, and it will take too much time for it to test. So what we do here is we set up a sample request, example request. The first thing we need is to add a URL, which is this right here. So copy this and paste it here. And we want to make sure that this is post, because get is getting information, post is sending information. So in this case, we're sending information to the webhook. And because that is post, we also have to change this to post. There we go. And then we need the body, raw. So this is a JSON. JSON is just a language that we communicate software to software. And we have to set up the requests. So we have to set up the actual variables that go into the webhook for it to start the automation, which are the ones right here. So we get a meeting ID and event type. So right here, if I listen for test events, I can press send, and this will send the information here. So again, if this looks a bit complicated, just understand that we're not able to test this. Okay, I have to be on a call. So we're using Postman API to send a sample request here. And this is exactly what we would get every single time when the call finishes. So it's purely just for testing. As in when we go live, we don't use Postman API, we just use the webhook from the Fireflies. Now that we have the meeting ID and we don't have the transcript, we now have to figure out how to take this transcript from this meeting ID. So a meeting ID is like a unique identifier for every single call that you have. And so if I go to Fireflies meetings and I go to like a random one, say on here, this one right here, the URL on the top, if I go here, I can see that this is the meeting ID. So the URL is pretty standard. And the only thing that changes is the meeting ID and the meeting name. So going back here, we have to take the meeting ID, which I can pin now. I don't have to use Postman API anymore. And then we can look for Fireflies right here, Fireflies. You would have to install the thing. It would take like 5 seconds, so it's fine. And now we want to get the transcript, get transcript. So as you can see, to get the transcript, we just have to put the transcript ID. Now, the first thing you have to do is go here, create a new credential. You have to get the API key, which you can get here. What was it? Settings, developer settings, and API key. Just copy this and paste it here to connect your account. Choose the right account. And now the resource, which is what is the thing that we are changing, or in general, what are we doing? In this case, it'll be transcript. The operation, which is what is the action that we're doing? And you can do a bunch of stuff. And the transcript ID, which we get from here, meeting ID. By the way, most of these variables, you don't actually have to know anything. You just have to know the body, which is the actual variables that we get, which is a meeting ID and event type. And that's it. So now that we have the transcript ID, we can press execute step. This will now, I believe, take the transcript. Yeah. And the problem is that we have an array. So it didn't give us the transcript all together. It gave us different bits of the transcript. So sentence 1, sentence 2, and this, well, being a 2-hour call, is really, really long. See, we have about 444 sentences. It breaks up the transcript into sentences. So naturally, the thing you want to do here is take the sentences and put them all together. So the next step is to do that. So we have to pin this. And by the way, I'm pinning this so I don't have to rerun it again. I can go to edit fields, which is basically taking a sort of variable and changing it, manipulating data, right? And we're trying to get the sentences, which are all the way here, really, really long, and put them all together. To do that, we can just call this transcript. So I'm setting a variable. And now if I go full screen, I can sentences, because this is the array. Again, an array is this whole thing full of all the variables together. And we just want to extract the raw text. And to do that, you have to go here. I believe that is map. Yeah, map, because we're mapping. We're saying, hey, inside this, I want raw text. So be item equals item dot raw underscore text. There you go. You see how we have all the sentences here right now? All the sentences. And the last thing is to actually join them. So join, which is basically taking out all the quote marks, and we just have a full transcript of a call instead of this, right? Sentences with a bunch of variables that are so long. Because we could theoretically feed this to AI, but it would just be way too large. It would break, definitely break. So we just have the transcript that we need. Okay, so what do we do? We took the sentences, because there's 450 sentences or more. I didn't even scroll all the way down. And we're taking the raw text, which is the actual text from that sentence. So we just have all the sentences together. And this is the formula we use. Map, item dot the actual name of the item, which is raw text, plus join, so dot join, which is joining everything together. And that's it. So now that we have the transcript, we can execute step, and the JSON would just be the whole transcript. So I'm going to rename this to clean transcript. And the next step is actually the sauce of the whole system. So this is done. So the next step here is to make a GPT. And by the way, a GPT is just a thing, like an AI assistant, you could say, that is just trained on a specific thing, right? That allows us to be able to analyze, to talk to do X, Y, Z. And why is it better than just a normal one? Is because we give it examples. So for example, Mozy GPT is trained on 200 hours of content and 2 of his books, right? So you ideally want to use this instead of using the general ChatGPT search bar, because this is trained on these documents. So this is more specific. And so in this case, we're not going to use a GPT here, but we're going to go to platform.openai.com, which is the API platform, right? Where we actually use automations back and forth. By the way, I made a full video showing you how you can build with AgentKit, video up here. But the thing that we want to do is to be able to create a project. So if you just logged into platform.openai.com, you most likely don't have a project. So create one. Let's name it n8n test. Create. Go to dashboard. Go to assistants, because these are the assistants that we make. And by the way, if I go to my previous project, you can see that I already have assistants. You can press create an assistant. Create. And now this is where we make the GPT, okay? The thing that actually is going to be able to analyze our calls. So I'm going to name this sales coach, and the instructions is the prompt. So let's say I want an AI assistant to just give me feedback on my sales calls. I am taking sales calls every day and I have an AI automation agency that helps clients to automate their processes and be more efficient in the business. And the founder is Michele, M-I-C-H-E-L-E. And I'm the one who's hopping on the calls, and I'm also their sales rep. I'm doing everything. So there you go, press create. And I'm using AI because typically that's what you guys would do, but I'll show you exactly if this is a good prompt or not good prompt. And this right here wasn't here, I believe, a few months ago. I think it's almost recent. And it gave us a full prompt. It's actually not bad. So the founder is Michele. You don't have to spell it step. I just didn't want it to say Michelle. That's cool. Providing actionable feedback on sales calls for an AI automation agency. The founder is Michele, not contacted by the user. Let's write in markdown formatting. So overview. This just means heading 1. So it just hierarchy of like text, just as you would for a normal essay. And then here it would be objective. Your objective is to analyze each submitted sales call, identify strength. That is pretty decent. I'm not going to give it any examples. And one thing we need to add here is the document that the GPT will use to actually give feedback on a call. So I'm going to put file, and I'm going to drop in the file that we're going to use to be able to transcribe, or not transcribe, to give feedback on the call. And it's this file. So this is the file that I'm using. So it's a PDF that has 10 steps framework, has introduction. So, hey, John, how's everything going? Agenda. What I like to do in this call is really just to ask you a few questions, get to know a little bit more about you, and really see if and how I could actually help. That's not fair? It's crazy. Because I used to be in sales. So, well, I can't call me a closer, but I was a setter. Vision-based questions, challenge-based questions. And these are considered good, right? And this is a course program that I was in, and they gave us this framework. So I'm going to use this to be able to compare it to our call. And yeah, that's it. So with that said, we have the framework PDF. I can attach it. And what this will now do is it will turn this into a vector store. And what that means is that it's taking the PDF, in this case it's text, it's transforming it into embeddings, and then it's vectorizing the data. That's why it's called a, let me go here. It's called a vector store. And then we're adding it to a vector database, right? Database. So you hear vector database, it just means that it's full of like information, whether it's an image, audio, video, and text. In this case, it's just a PDF that is turned into a number, so that we then can text, hey, can you pull information from XYZ, which will then vectorize my question, which means it will take my question, turn that into 010001. It will then check it against the vector store that we have, which are all different vectors, lines, and stuff with all numbers. It will match the numbers and then give us the answer. Okay, which is much more efficient than anything else. That's why RAG systems are very, very good. I need to turn this on, but it's telling me that the file search is not enabled for this model. Let's try GPT-5 or GPT-4.1. Yeah, there we go. So not all models can retrieve data. In this case, we can use 4.1 file search. And now we can say, what is it that it's called? Millionaire Closers Framework. Okay. So when it's giving feedback, I wanted to give feedback from like taking information from the Millionaire Closers Framework.pdf that I uploaded in the file search, and just give feedback based on that. So now it's doing its thing, and we also have a few settings that we can change down below, which I'll explain in just a second. All right, so I just finished this on a full screen. Let me change this again. It keeps changing it to the other one. Overview. You're an assistant closers PDF. So we're saying, hey, you are an assistant specializing in providing actionable feedback. So the reason why most of the prompts that you see out there start with you are an AI assistant is because we are giving it a system prompt. A system prompt is a prompt that we give an AI in general with an identity. So if you tell an AI you are this type of person, it will psych itself to think that it actually is that thing, is that identity. So then the output will be better. Right? It will be better in every single way possible. So for this example right here, imagine you had a sales call come through. You have to analyze this sales call, and you have to use AI to do it. If one AI was given the, hey, you were a helpful, intelligent sales assistant that's done this for 10 years versus another one that doesn't have it, this will be higher quality because it's now given an identity. That's it. Analyze each submitted US sales call, referencing only the Millionaire Closers Framework. Yeah, I'm just taking off the apostrophes because that's not what the actual thing has. And now it's really just about testing, right? So I'm gonna press save, and we can test it right here. But before that, I also have these model configurations. So the response format will be text, that's fine. Then we have temperature, and the higher the temperature, the more random the model will be. The lower the temperature, the more strict the AI is with the rules that we give it, okay? Then we have top P, which is the higher the top P, the more it will use different words. The lower the top P, the more it will use the same words, right? So we'll start using actually the same words. All right, so I'm going to test this. I'm just going to drop in a transcript, which I can get right here. Let me just copy this. Copy selection. I can paste this. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Paste this here. I can run. And you're basically running this actual like agent, GPT. So you don't have to run it through the automation. You can just run it here. So reasoning. Frame control and agenda. The prospect volunteered extensive details about the business. The rep asked several questions. I don't know if I like this too much, I'm not gonna lie, because it also gives us null, which is a bit mad. Yeah, I don't want any of this. This is pretty shit. So it's not that good. Plus it took a lot of tokens to do it. So I'm actually going to paste the prompt that I had before, just one right here, which is much shorter. And I said, you're a sales closer expert. I'm going to do overview. With over 30 years of experience in teaching sales, you know the exact framework that will get a prospect to buy and are expert in reviewing people's calls and so on. Then I give it my context and then rules and guidelines. Now, the important thing here and the actual use case is that this will not be the CEO. Well, most likely, right? It will be his sales team that does calls, and then you review the calls using a GPT here, and then you give feedback on the calls so they can actually get better. And that's literally it. So let me paste this again, the actual call. Let me go back to n8n. I can copy this, copy selection, paste this here, run. And now it should give us a shorter answer. Opportunities null. Okay, let's just see how it looks like on the actual automation. I'm not going to judge here, so let's just see what it looks like. But I like this more because it's shorter, right? And it also seems like it's a bit more random. So let me turn this down a little bit. Let's do 8. Let me try this again. And this is all about testing, right? So theoretically, you want to have the actual answer like in your head. You just have to test. So by putting it lower, I'm saying, hey, don't be so creative, right? Like just follow the framework, follow the prompt that we give it. And it's actually better. Well, I don't know if it's better, but it's giving us a better answer, to be honest. We'll just put it to test in the automation. We'll see how it does. Cool. I like this one right here. Sample script experts from the next call. All right. Now that we have this, we can now connect this to our n8n workflow. So all we have to do is go to plus, look for OpenAI, and then usually you actually message a model. But in this case, you want to assistant, to create a message an assistant. There you go. To connect your OpenAI, you have to go to get the API key, which you can get from platform.openai.com. Go to dashboard, go to API keys, press create new secret key. So n8n test, create a key, and then you can copy this and bring it back here and put Michele, 19th of October, save. Now you have the connection to your account saved. And now the resource will be assistant. The action that we're taking is messaging an assistant. So we're doing the same thing that we did before here. We're just doing it automatically. And now from the list, we want to get the sales coach. That's it. Bear in mind that when you make an assistant on this project, and then you make an API key on this project, you will not be able to see this assistant here. So make sure that you make the assistant on the project where you also get the API key in, right? It's important. So you can see here, I got the API key from this project, n8n test. Then we have to add the user message. So the user message will be not chat trigger node, but it will be defined below because we're defining the user message. If I make this bigger, so expression, make this bigger, I can copy the prompt. And I can say your task is to give feedback on this call by looking at the transcript. Rules, make the feedback concise and very tactical, pointing out exactly what I could have done better on the call. Provide specific quotes in the call when giving feedback, and remove this right here, which is typically what it gives us when it sources the actual data or the text. That's it. And then don't use markdown formatting because the next step is Slack, and Slack doesn't have markdown formatting. If you don't know what markdown formatting is, it's literally this. It's like heading 1 is this. Then we have heading 2. But it doesn't actually, this is great if you have like some softwares that read markdown formatting. So it wouldn't actually output this. It would just output the heading 2 in the format of heading 2. But in this case, we don't have it with Slack, so it's fine. And now this is finished. So it is green. And the last thing is send a Slack message with feedback. I'm gonna go here. First, rename this to sales coach. Let me actually run this so I can see how it works. This is now theoretically talking to this agent, my agent, GPT, and getting the answer. As you can see here, we have the output, which is sales call feedback, millionaire closer framework, opening, report, strength. Okay, cool. And now let me pin this. We can add Slack, just the last node, and we can message a channel, send a message. To connect our Slack, just go here to create a new credential. You can connect your account and just log in. Literally just choose the organization that you have. For me, it's JM Solutions. And then you can allow connection successful, go back to n8n. You can put JM Solutions As you can see, I already done it before. Right here, I have another one. Now the thing that we're changing is a message or manipulating. The action that we're taking is sending. Send a message to channel. If I go to Slack, I can see that all the channels I have are these ones, which are all for testing. So when you make a Slack account, this is a free account as well. So you'll have the free account. Just literally make a channel. So you can create a channel and you can name it call reviews or whatever it is. And this will be the channel that we use. Now, bear in mind that the channel ID is also here. I believe it's either this or this. I think it's this. But we don't have to use the ID. We can just simply select from the options because it will be call reviews. And then it will be send a simple text message. And the message text will be the output, which is a feedback of the call. If I press execute step, we should now see that we have a feedback. This is way too long. I'm gonna lie. If I had to read this for every single call that I have, I probably wouldn't want to take calls anymore. So we definitely need to say, make it shorter. Yeah, I think it will have to be here. Rules. Make it concise without writing massive paragraphs. Not the best prompt, not gonna lie. So let me execute this step again. No, let me execute this step. Unpin, and let me execute the step. Now I'm running this. We have the output. Let me pin this and let me test this again. Let me run this. If I go here, I can see that I have the, okay, that's much better. You see how a change in prompt can just change everything here? We control an agenda setting. Early in the call, you let the prospect take the lead. I'm quite direct and I can just go cut straight to the chase. It's true. Yeah, cool. I love the fact that they're pulling in quotes. Like the quote stuff is really, really good because it tells you exactly what you said and what you could have said better. So for example, it says here, when she said, I just probably won't have the time to do it basically. And you moved on to technical detail. Instead, drill down tell me more about what not having the time is costing the business. Where have things broken down or gone wrong because of this? Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we have the full exact framework that we want. Ideally, I want to see the name of the call at the top. So what I can do here in Slack is I can go down to get a transcript and I should be able to see the name of the call right here, title, and then you can say breakdown feedback. And now if I execute the step, I can now see that I have basically the same thing, which you can now use, and we have the full breakdown. All right, so that right there is the full system that we built step by step. I'm gonna leave the resources of the blueprint, the sales framework that we used, the prompt for the GPT, and the prompt for the n8n in the GPT, or the GPT in the n8n that we used. So you have it all down in the description below. And by the way, if you're someone who wants to start and scale your AI automation agency, but you don't know where to start, well, check out the first link down below, which is a video that talks through our one-to-one mentorship program, which is a program that we just launched a month ago, where you get to work with me personally one-to-one to help you scale your business. And if you want to dive deeper into n8n, then check out this video up here, where I show you how you can master n8n just by learning 17 notes. With that being said, I hope you found value from this video, and I'll see you in the next one.